Vivek Chudamani, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma. Part 5. Part 5 consists of verses 117 to 140, in which the following are discussed: Satgun, the self or the Atma, the non-self or the non-Atma, and bondage. Vivek Chudamani. Pure Satva is clear like water, but in conjunction with Rajas and Tamas, it makes for transmigrations. It makes for repeated births and deaths. The reality of the Atma becomes reflected in Satva, and like the sun, it reveals the entire world of matter. The following are the traits of mixed Satva. When Satva is mixed with Rajas and Tamas: a complete absence of pride and so on. Niyam, which is purity, contentment and the like. Yam, which is the attribute of non-killing, of truthfulness, etc. A yearning for liberation, the divine tendencies, and turning away from the unreal. The following are the traits of pure Sattva. When Sattva is not mixed with either Rajas or Tamas, or with both, then the traits are cheerfulness, the realization of one's own self or Atma, supreme peace, contentment, bliss, and steady devotion to the Atma, by which the aspirant enjoys everlasting bliss. The undifferentiated, which is the perfectly balanced state of the three gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, where there is no manifested universe. This is spoken of as a compound of the three gunas, and this is the causal body of the soul, identifying itself through ignorance with this or with the gross or subtle body. Profound or deep dreamless sleep is its special state, in which the function of the mind and all its organs are suspended. In this state, however, they are not in perfect knowledge as in samadhi, but in ignorance. This, therefore, is the difference between samadhi and dreamless deep sleep. In samadhi, a person is in perfect knowledge, while in dreamless deep sleep, he is in ignorance. Profound or deep dreamless sleep is the stoppage of all kinds of perception, including that of remembering and of delusion. In this state, the mind remains in a subtle, seed-like form. The test for this is the universal verdict when a person says about this state: "When I was in deep sleep, I did not know anything." This negative remembrance of not remembering anything, this proves the continuity of the mind even in the deep dreamless state of Sushupti. The body, the organs, the pranas, the mind, egoism and so on, all the modifications, the sense objects, pleasure and the rest, the gross elements, in fact the whole universe, up to the undifferentiated, all this is the non-self, all this is the non-Atma. Being the non-self or the non-Atma, these are all that we must avoid identifying with. Since these are the non-self or the non-Atma, we must avoid identifying with them. Mehet, which is cosmic intelligence, was the first to come from Prakriti or Maya. From Mehet down to the gross body, Everything is the effect of Maya. Know that these and Maya itself are non-self, are non-Atma, and therefore unreal, like the mirage in the desert. Now I will tell you the real nature of the Supreme Self. I will tell you the real nature of the Param Atma, realizing which man is freed from bondage and attains liberation. Know that there is some absolute entity which is the eternal substratum of the consciousness of egoism, which is the witness of the three states of waking, of dream sleep, and of deep dreamless sleep, and which is distinct from the five sheaths or coverings. The five sheaths consist respectively of An or matter, of Pran or vital force, of Man or mind, of Vigyan or knowledge, and of Anand or bliss. The first sheath consists of this gross, this physical body of ours. The next three sheaths make up what is called the subtle body, and the last sheath makes up the causal body, the Karan Sharir. The Atma that we refer to, that Atma is beyond all these five sheaths. That which knows everything that happens in all the three states, the waking state, the dream state of sleep, and the dreamless state of deep sleep, Sushupti. That which is aware of the presence or of the absence of the mind and its functions, and that which is the background of the notion of egoism. That which is the background of the notion of egoism. Know that to be this Atma, which itself sees all and everything, but which no one can see, which illumines and lights up the intellect and the like, but which all of these cannot illumine or light up. This is that Atma, that by which this entire universe is pervaded, but which nothing can pervade, and which nothing does pervade, which, when it shines, then this entire universe shines as its reflection. This is that Atma, by whose very presence the body, the organs of the body, the mind and the intellect keep to their respective spheres of action like obedient servants. This is that Atma, by which everything from egoism down to the body, to the sense objects and to pleasure and the like, is known as palpably as a jar, is known as clearly as a jar, for the Atma is the essence of eternal knowledge. This is the innermost self. This is the primeval Purush, the first being, whose essence is the constant realization of infinite bliss, which is always the same, yet reflecting through the different mental modifications and commanded by which the organs and the pranas perform their respective functions. In this very body, in the mind that is full of Satva, in the secret chamber of the intellect, in the Akash known as the unmanifested, the Atma of charming splendor shines like the sun high up in the sky, manifesting the universe through its own effulgence, through its own light. First of all is the gross of the physical body. Within this physical body, there is the mind or the inner organ, of which buddhi or intelligence, characterized by its ability to determine, is the most developed form of the mind. Within this buddhi or intelligence, and totally pervading it, is the causal body or the current sharir, known as the unmanifested. It is within this causal body, it is within this current sharir that we must seek the Atma. The idea here is that the Atma transcends all the three bodies. It transcends the gross body, the subtle body, as well as the causal body. In fact, the Atma transcends the whole sphere of duality and also of materiality. The knower of the modifications of the mind and of egoism and of the activities of the body, the knower of the organs and of the pranas, apparently takes on the very form of all of these, just as fire, which has no form of its own, that fire takes on the form of the object it burns. In the same manner, the Atma, which has no form of its own, takes on the form of buddhi, and so forth. Know that the Atma is neither born, nor does the Atma die. The Atma neither grows, nor does it decay, nor does it undergo any change or modifications whatsoever. The Atma is eternal. It does not cease to exist even when the body ceases to exist. Just like the sky in the jar continues to exist even after the jar containing the sky, containing the air in it, is destroyed, so too does the Atma, for the Atma is independent. The Atma is above all the six states of beings, those of birth, those of existence, those of development, those of maturity, those of decay, and those of death. The Atma is above all these changes. The Supreme Self, or the Paramatma, is different from the Prakriti, the mother of the entire manifested universe and all its modifications. It is of the essence of pure knowledge. It is absolute. It directly manifests the entire gross and subtle universe. It entirely manifests the world of matter and the world of thought in all the three states as the substratum of the persistent sense of egoism, and it manifests itself as the witness of the buddhi or the intellect, which is the discriminative faculty of man. All the actions that we seem to be doing are actually being done by buddhi or intelligence, while the Atma stands aloof as the witness, as the only absolute entity. By means of a regulated mind and a purified intellect, directly realize your own self, directly realize your own Atma in the body. Identify yourself with the Atma within yourself. Do not identify with the gross, with the subtle, or with the causal body. And realizing your own Atma in the body and identifying with it, cross the boundless ocean of samsara, whose waves are birth and death, and being firmly established in Brahm as your very own essence, be blessed. By our very nature, we are always identified with Brahm. But because of ignorance, we think that we are limited. We think that we are finite and so on. However, when a person identifies the self or his Atma with the non-self, then there is the bondage of man due to his ignorance. And then this brings in, along with itself, the miseries of birth and death. It is because of this that a person considers this fast fading body as real, and identifying with the self same body, he nourishes it, he keeps it clean by bathing it, and he preserves it by means of agreeable sense objects, by which he becomes bound to it just as a caterpillar is bound by the threads of its own cocoon. Man runs after sense objects and pleasures, thinking that they are conducive to the well-being of the body. But these, however, throw man into a terrible bondage. They bind him. To attain freedom, a man has to totally renounce the sense objects, just as a caterpillar has to cut through its cocoon to gain its freedom. The person who is overpowered by ignorance, he invariably mistakes a thing for what it is not. It is the absence of discrimination between what is real, namely the self or the Atma, and what is not real, what is not the Atma, namely the world of phenomena, that causes a person to mistake a rope for a snake through that wrong notion. Therefore, listen carefully, my friend. It is the mistaking of transitory things as real that constitutes bondage. Bondage takes place when we make the mistake of considering things that are transitory to be real. This veiling power named avritti, this veiling power which dominates in ignorance, this power covers the self or the Atma, whose glories are infinite and which manifests itself through the power of knowledge, indivisible, eternal, and one without a second. It covers it just as Rahu covers the orb of the sun. When his own self, when his own Atma endowed with the purest splendor is hidden from view, then a person through ignorance falsely identifies himself with his own body, which is the non-self. And then the great power of Rajas, called the projecting power, sorely afflicts him through the binding chains of lust, of anger and the like. Yes, then the great projecting power of Rajas sorely afflicts him through the binding chains of lust, of anger and the like. This concludes part 5 of Vivek Chudamani, consisting of verses 117 to 140. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.